Back with us on the conversation. I'm continuing my discussion with the chairman of the National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA, in Jamaica, Dennis Chung. Let's continue to talk, Dennis, about how the vital numbers have been turned in the right way by the team that you lead in support, in concert rather, with the management team, of course, which works with it. So you mentioned savings in terms of fuel consumption. You spoke about persons who were drawing salaries but who actually weren't working at the agency being eliminated from the system. Which other areas have you made the most significant progress where the numbers, the critical numbers related to the operation of the entity are concerned?
Well, one of the things we looked at also is that at the start we set up some KPIs. So we sort of defined exactly what our role is. We couldn't be everything to everyone. So when people say, boy, the town is dirty, right? We know that that is commercial garbage. And under the law, our responsibility is not commercial garbage. So what our responsibility is to enforce it by issuing tickets and summonses to the business people.
Stick up in, meaning, because I want the viewers to get this. When you say commercial garbage is not your responsibility, you mean precisely what? Garbage generated by a company?
By businesses.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a chocolate manufacturer then generates garbage, leaves it out the front of the building. You're saying that's not your responsibility to remove?
What they are supposed to, under the law, make arrangements commercially with either NSWMA or a Minots or somewhere to pick up their garbage, right? A lot of the garbage that you see out there was being generated commercially in the towns. What we are responsible for under the law is to pick up garbage from residential communities.
Yes.
Right? We have a responsibility, however, to enforce that the commercial people actually do have these contracts. And we set on a mission to do that. And we actually were successful we used to measure it every month in terms of the amount of persons we got on contracts converted. In terms of the residential collections, what we used to do, we used to have KPIs around number of complaints we receive and also the backlog that's out there. And we used to get the reports monthly through our director of operations or through Audley also as ED. And what we saw is that those complaints and backlogs kept coming down. So we know we're doing something right. Right? Immediately also we said to the public, we know that we don't have the capacity to collect garbage more than once every 10 days or so. And we put that message out there, right? So every month we monitor that number and we see that we've been improving. There are situations where people have challenges still, because one of the things we know is that before we're getting in all these new trucks, we're relying a lot on the private people and also our old fleet. Now, when you have a fleet of trucks where the average age is over 10 years, we have breakdowns, right? But we have been seeing it come down. We also have people sometimes who report, and it's false reports. We had a situation the other day where a lady called and said she has not her garbage collected for 3 weeks. The regional manager called us the day after when we told him and said, no, he was in that community the day before. Right? So we do have a lot of that and we have to manage that. Sometimes it's the people who shout the loudest that get the airplay. And that's what happened. But from our point of view, we know that we have managing that. Right? So we do track it from that point of view. We look at things also like the amount of trips that a truck makes. So one of the things that we're looking at in putting in place is what we call transfer stations. So the truck that collects garbage in Westmoreland, for example, right now has to drive with that garbage and go to Montego Bay to dump. Right? That is very inefficient. Or St. Elizabeth.
Highly inefficient.
What we're doing now is we're putting in place a transfer station there, so that is a temporary place to house garbage. So instead of driving 50 miles, they drive 5 or 10 miles, dump there, and then maybe once a week or so, that accumulated garbage is pulled to retirement. So those are some of the things that we're looking at doing. So we track those numbers. We also, our accounting, we do track our financial statements and things like our reconciliations and that sort of thing. So we do have a system where we track that, and we relate it to the performance of the regional manager, and then we get feedback and know how to deal with it.
In June 2016, the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, CAPRI, published a paper on the privatization of the NSWMA. In that paper, it said that the NSWMA was failing in its mandate. It did give credit because it acknowledged that there were severe resource constraints, crimping the ability of the entity to carry out its mandate. But it did point out, some areas where there were some efficiencies, some improvements in terms of management and so forth. But it said overall that the mandate of the NSWMA was not being met. It was failing in most of the indicators. On this day in sports, if they looked again, Capri, would they say the same thing?
Yeah, we're failing. We are not meeting the standard that we need to meet. And we recognize that. We discuss that every month at board meeting. But what we realize is that we're improving. And we're hitting at the things one by one. The original mandate of the NSWMA was not to collect garbage, was to be a regulatory agency, if you look at the Act.
Yes.
So in that aspect, we know that we failed. We also know that we should be collecting garbage, even though this wasn't the original mandate, at least twice per week. We're not doing that yet, right? We know that by the end of this year, when we get the 100 trucks in, we'll be able to do it. A part of the problem that we have also in communities is containerization. When people think about it, they don't understand the complexities in collecting garbage. So when someone doesn't containerize, and you see people putting their garbage out, and the truckman has to stop with a shovel and lift it up.
Yes.
Instead of spending 10 minutes on the road, you spend an hour.
Yes.
Right?
Inefficiency.
Yeah.
Yes.
The same way, George, that you have problem in traffic because of the bad roads.
Yes.
Can you imagine the big trucks?
Yes.
So we're actually operating significantly under our capacity because of some of these issues. In terms of the legislation also, the legislation is not up to scratch. So we are the first to admit that we are not performing as we should. And effectively, you could say that the mandate that we received in the NSWMA Act we failed.
Yes.
We know that.
Yes.
But what we're saying is that we're taking systematic steps to improve daily, and what we're heartened by is that we are actually improving when we look at the numbers, and we're moving in that direction, because what we're trying to do, George, is we're not going there as a board and saying, okay, we're going to fix the collection problem. We want to build an organization that is sustainable. You understand? So we're attacking the internal issues. We're attacking the governance issues. We're dealing with the staffing issues. We're trying to address the resources in terms of the trucks in a very systematic manner, right? So we're looking at the best way to get trucks into the system. We're looking at the best trucks for the system.
Yes.
Because we've had trucks in the past which has plagued NSWMA that were not properly spec'd.
Yes.
So all of those things we have to look at. And we're saying that based on the wins that we're seeing the audited financials up to date. We're reducing the waste by the internal audit process and all of that. We are seeing the improvements, and we're moving towards that sustainability. Now, it might be reversed, right, based on some political decision.
Yes.
But we're going to make some recommendations, even as we leave office, about what we think is sustainable. For example, one of the things that kills an organization, right, and has killed the NSWMA. Imagine, George, you have an organization that every time a government wins, you change everybody. You can't sustain a culture of an organization like that.
Yes.
And that is one of the things we're going to look at. We have a situation also where the executive director and management of NSWMA, despite all the work and everything that they do, is highly underpaid. You cannot attract the talent that you want, right? And therefore, if you don't have your HR right from the point of view of continuity and compensation, then what do you expect? Yeah. You know, and if you have another board that is appointed based on politics and after we leave, then You know, so we're trying to build that sustainable model. We, you know, our objective is to get the Corporate Governance Award for public sector.
Yes.
Right, so we're moving towards that. But we admit we're not achieving the mandate that we need to achieve.
So you say that your term expires in 2 years?
2 years' time, yeah.
How much more do you think, how much further do you think you can take these improvements, these changes in that time?
We think we can do a lot, because what happens is that because of the state it was in 4 years ago, and the change start, because of the condition, the change is slow initially.
Yes.
But as you gain momentum, it gets faster and faster. So we're at a point now where we think that the momentum will pick up. So certainly in terms of the governance structure, we're going to be very strong. And in terms of the whole thing of the internal controls. So we'll set the organization right internally.
Yes.
Right? The infrastructure internally. The legislative process should be in place.
Yes.
We should have the proper resources in terms of trucks after we get this 100 in, and have a system for replacing it going forward. So we're going to put all of that in place. In terms of the privatization, I think that within 2 years we should be very far down the wicket with that. And we're looking at improving the dumps even as they are. So the work that we've done at Riverton, for example, the risk of a prolonged fire is significantly reduced, because in March 2015, why the fire burned for 2 to 3 weeks is because there was nothing was covered.
Yes.
The fire that happened in September, which we strongly suspect was arson. That fire lasted for 3 days, right? Fires occur on the dumps all the time. Yeah. But what happened is that we have the ability now to control it and put it out with the fire suppression. We want to do the same thing for retirement.
Yes.
So we're looking at that, because 80% of your waste is between retirement and Riverton.
Yeah.
So we're moving towards those things. So I would say that within another year, we should be very far down the wicket with those things.
All right. Take a final break. We come back with more on the conversation, speaking with the chairman of the NSWMA in Jamaica, Dennis Chung.